Picture this. You bought your home 5 years ago. You paid $400,000 for it. You did everything right, got the inspection, checked the flood maps, secured the mortgage. Last year it flooded twice. This year your insurance company sent you a letter. They are no longer covering your property, not because of anything you did, because of where you live. And where you live is sinking. Right now, while you are watching this video, the ground beneath certain American cities is dropping millimeter by millimeter, year by year. At the same time, the ocean surrounding them is rising. Two forces moving toward each other simultaneously, and the people living in those cities were largely never told. We are going to name all 10 of them. Some will surprise you. One of them, number 4 on this list, is home to the largest naval base in the world. The United States military is already changing its operational protocols because of what is happening to that city. If it is serious enough to worry the Navy, it is serious enough to worry the rest of us. Before we get into the list, here is the one thing you need to understand about what underwater actually means in this context, because it is not what the headlines make it sound like. We are not talking about Atlantis. We are not talking about cities vanishing beneath the waves overnight. What we are talking about is something slower, and in many ways, worse. A street that floods during storms that used to stay dry. Then it floods during a high tide with no storm at all. Then it floods on a clear Tuesday morning in October for no obvious reason. Then the insurance companies leave. Then the property values collapse. Then the businesses close. Then the people go. That process is not a prediction. In several American cities, it has already started. Stay with us. City 1, Miami, Florida. Miami does not need a hurricane to flood anymore. On a clear afternoon during a king tide, the kind of high tide that occurs several times a year when the moon and sun align, water bubbles up through storm drains and covers streets in Miami Beach and parts of downtown Miami. No storm, no rain, just the ocean, doing what it does, pushing higher than it used to. This is called sunny day flooding, and it has become a routine feature of life in South Florida. Miami showed the greatest share of exposure to flooding of any American city in the nature study, with up to $122,000 people and up to 81,000 properties at risk of flooding by 2050. ABC News. The Virginia Tech researchers found that Miami's mainland is subsiding at around 0.5 millimeter per year, modest by some standards, but its barrier islands, where many of the luxury high-rises are concentrated, are sinking faster due to the weight of construction on unstable ground. The deeper problem is geological. Miami is built on porous limestone. Unlike cities built on solid rock or compacted soil, Miami's foundation cannot be sealed against rising groundwater. When sea levels rise, the water does not just come over the seawall. It comes up through the ground itself, through the limestone, through the drains, through the foundations of buildings. Seawalls do not stop this. They cannot stop this. The water finds another way in. Miami has been raising roads, installing pumps, and elevating infrastructure for years at enormous cost. Coastal floods in the United States now happen 3 times more often than they did 30 years ago. And by 2050, they are projected to happen 10 times more often than today. Climate Central. For Miami, already flooding on sunny days, that trajectory does not lead to a manageable situation. It leads to a city that is perpetually, structurally wet, and the question of whether that city remains insurable, financeable, and livable is one that bond markets and insurance companies are already beginning to answer. Here is the number that should stop every Miami homeowner cold. The average home in Miami Beach costs over $1 million. The insurance market for that home is collapsing. Several major insurers have already exited Florida entirely. The math of owning property in a city that floods on clear days, in an insurance market that is retreating, does not work, and the people discovering that too late are the ones who bought 5 years ago and cannot sell today. If you've made it this far, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. It's completely free, and we bring new videos about our country. City 2, New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans is the city that most Americans think of first when they think of flooding, and the data confirms the intuition is correct. But the full picture of what is happening to New Orleans is more alarming than most people realize. New Orleans subsides at about 1.3 millimeters per year, but its low-lying delta position means every millimeter counts. Nearly 99.6% of properties in the city face flood risk in the next 3 decades. Animals around the globe. Large parts of New Orleans already sit below sea level in some neighborhoods, as much as 6 feet below. The levee system built after Hurricane Katrina in 2005 protects the city from storm surges, but it does not address the underlying reality. The ground is sinking, the ocean is rising, and the city is in a bowl that keeps getting deeper. The cause is both natural and human-made. New Orleans sits on the sediment of the Mississippi River Delta, soft, compressible material that has been compacting for centuries. The construction of levees, paradoxically, made this worse by preventing the annual flood deposits that used to replenish and raise the land. Groundwater extraction has accelerated the sinking further. The result is a city that is geometrically losing its position relative to the water around it, at a rate that its infrastructure cannot fully compensate for. The study found that in some communities in New Orleans, the areas with the greatest risk of increased flooding exposure are occupied by people of color who are also at an economic disadvantage compared to the city as a whole. The Hill. The geography of vulnerability in New Orleans is not random. The lowest lying areas are disproportionately the poorest areas, a pattern that reflects decades of inequitable development and disaster policy, and one that ensures the next major flood event will, once again, hit the most vulnerable residents hardest. City 3. Houston and Galveston, Texas. Houston is the fastest sinking major city in the United States, with more than 40% of its area dropping more than 5 millimeters per year and 12% sinking at twice that rate. Florida Realtors. The cause is almost entirely human-made. Houston sits on a thick layer of clay and sand that compresses when water is removed from it. Decades of massive groundwater extraction by a booming industrial and residential city has hollowed out the subsurface, causing the land above to collapse. Some areas near Houston have sunk by more than 10 feet over the past century. Galveston, just 50 miles down the coast, has experienced an extraordinary rate of sea level rise 8 inches in just 14 years, exacerbated by fast-sinking land. Climate Cosmos. High tide floods have struck Galveston at least 141 times since 2015. Officials are planning massive pump stations to manage the water, with each pump expected to cost more than $60 million, a figure that could exceed the city's entire annual tax revenue. The combination of rapid subsidence, Gulf Coast storm surge, and a flat coastal geography that offers no natural elevation buffer makes the Houston-Galveston corridor one of the most acutely vulnerable regions in the United States. Hurricane Harvey, in 2017, provided a preview. Nearly 200,000 homes flooded, $125 billion in damage, the most expensive natural disaster in Texas history. Harvey was not a particularly powerful hurricane. It was devastating primarily because the land it hit was already struggling to hold water back. In a region that is sinking faster than almost anywhere else in the country, the next Harvey will have even less margin. City 4. Norfolk, Virginia. This is the one that keeps military planners up at night, and if it is keeping the Pentagon up at night, you need to know about it. Norfolk rarely makes international headlines, but among climate scientists and military strategists, it is regarded as one of the most consequential flooding stories in America. Norfolk and Virginia Beach are sinking at a rate greater than 0.13 inches per year, and the combination of sinking land and rising seas creates a devastating double threat for the region. Climate Cosmos. In the past century, sea levels have risen 18 inches in Norfolk, Florida. Realtors, one of the highest measurements of any American city. What makes Norfolk especially significant is what sits there. The Norfolk Naval Station is the largest naval base in the world. It houses aircraft carriers, submarines, destroyers, and the command infrastructure for the entire Atlantic Fleet. It is already flooding regularly. Naval planners have documented the increasing frequency of tidal flooding on base and the damage it is causing to roads, equipment, and facilities. The United States military considers climate-driven flooding a direct threat to operational readiness, and Norfolk is the clearest example of why. By 2050, relative sea level rise projections for Norfolk translate into regular, disruptive flooding of neighborhoods, military installations, and critical infrastructure. A magical mess. The city has approved significant investment in flood barriers and drainage. The question is whether the investment is large enough and fast enough to keep pace with a process that is accelerating. When the answer to that question starts affecting America's ability to deploy its naval fleet, the stakes of getting it wrong extend well beyond property values. City 5. Charleston, South Carolina. Charleston is one of the most beautiful cities in America. Its antebellum architecture, cobblestone streets, and harbor views have made it one of the most visited destinations in the South. It is also one of the fastest sinking cities on the East Coast, and the flooding that is already happening there is not subtle. Charleston observed 17 flood days in 2023 alone. A magical mess, not 17 flood events, 17 separate days on which flooding occurred. Flooding that used to occur just once or twice a year could increase to 2 to 3 months per year by 2050 in the Low Country region around Charleston. A magical mess. Charleston is sinking at approximately 0.16 inches per year, and its historic downtown sits just 3 meters above sea level. Climate cosmos. As much as a third of sea level rise in this region over the next 3 decades could come from land subsidence alone. A magical mess, the land is essentially moving toward the sea, at the same time the sea is moving toward the land. The economic threat to Charleston is existential in a specific way. The city's entire tourism economy, the carriage rides, the plantation tours, the antebellum bed and breakfasts, is built on assets that are physically threatened by flooding. When the cobblestone streets of the historic district flood routinely, the cultural identity that drives the economy begins to erode. The tourists can come back next year. The buildings cannot move to higher ground. City 6. New York City. New York City learned in 2012 what happens when its waterfront collides with a major storm. Hurricane Sandy flooded the subway system, knocked out power for hundreds of thousands of residents, and caused $65 billion in damage. Sandy was a warning. The city has been working on its response ever since, and the scale of what is required is staggering. New York City is sinking at around 1.5 to 2.4 millimeters per year, with specific hotspots moving significantly faster. JFK Airport sinks at 1.7 millimeters annually, LaGuardia at 1.5 millimeters, and Newark close behind. Animals around the globe. In the past century, sea levels in New York have risen 11 inches. Florida realtors. Florida, New York, and New Jersey have the most people and homes in areas at risk from a severe coastal flood, by 2050 climate central of any states in the country. The city's coastal protection investment seawalls, berms, the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project runs into the tens of billions. The question is not whether New York is taking this seriously. It clearly is. The question is whether any level of investment can fully protect a city of 8 million people built at the edge of the ocean on land that is actively sinking. City 7. Tampa and St. Petersburg, Florida. Miami gets most of the attention when people talk about Florida's flood vulnerability. The data suggests Tampa and St. Petersburg deserve equal concern, and in certain scenarios, considerably more. Tampa, St. Petersburg, and Cape Coral are low-lying, densely populated, and in the direct path of Gulf Coast storm surges that are only growing more intense. A magical mess, Tampa Bay's geography makes it uniquely dangerous. The bay is funnel-shaped wide at the mouth, narrowing as it extends inland. When a hurricane drives a storm surge into Tampa Bay, that funnel concentrates and amplifies the water, pushing it higher and farther inland than it would otherwise reach. Tampa has not experienced a direct major hurricane hit since 1921. That unusual streak of luck is not a guarantee. It is a statistical anomaly that increases the probability of a future event. Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton in 2024 demonstrated in real time what Gulf Coast surge can do to this region, flooding that surpassed records in multiple locations. Both storms were, in the context of what a direct major hit would produce, warm-up acts. City 8, Corpus Christi, Texas. Corpus Christi occupies a position on the Texas Gulf Coast that combines nearly every risk factor identified in the Virginia Tech study. The researchers specifically identified Corpus Christi among the Gulf Coast cities with notable subsidence rates, compounding the sea level rise that the Gulf Coast already experiences at among the highest rates in the country. Nature. The Gulf Coast as a whole is experiencing sea level rise faster than most of the Atlantic or Pacific coastlines, a combination of ocean warming, changing circulation patterns, and the exceptional rate of land subsidence caused by decades of oil, gas, and groundwater extraction throughout the region. Corpus Christi sits at the intersection of all of these forces. The city is also home to one of the largest petrochemical port complexes in the United States. The infrastructure that processes and exports the energy that fuels the American economy is built on land that is sinking into the Gulf. The economic stakes of flooding here extend well beyond the city itself. A significant flood event in Corpus Christi is an energy supply event for the entire country. City 9, Boston, Massachusetts. Boston is not the first city most people think of when they think of flood risk. The data puts it squarely on the list. Boston is among the large cities surrounded by water that will experience flooding in the near future due to land elevation changes combined with sea level rise. ABC News. In the past century, sea levels in Boston have risen 11 inches. Florida Realtors. Large portions of downtown Boston, including the Financial District, the Seaport District, and Logan Airport, are built on landfill. The Back Bay neighborhood, as its name suggests, was literally a bay that was filled in during the 19th century. That filled land is less stable than bedrock, more susceptible to flooding, and more vulnerable to gradual subsidence. The Seaport District, Boston's newest, most expensive, most heavily developed neighborhood, sits on reclaimed tidal flats at essentially sea level. During major storm events, it already floods. The city is planning flood barriers and elevated streetscapes, but the billions of dollars of development already built on this vulnerable land represent a commitment that cannot be undone. The buildings are there. The water is coming. City 10, San Francisco Bay Area. San Francisco's hilly terrain protects much of the city, but the low-lying areas built on reclaimed bay mud tell a different story. San Francisco International Airport and other parts of the city built on reclaimed land are sinking into the surrounding bay. ABC News Treasure Island has seen subsidence exceeding 10 millimeters per year. The Hill. The broader Bay Area threat extends beyond the city. Oakland, San Jose's waterfront areas, and low-lying communities around the bay's southern end are all vulnerable. The Foster City levee system, protecting tens of thousands of residents built on bayfill, has been identified in studies as inadequate for projected sea level rise scenarios. There is also an economic dimension here that most flood risk analyses miss: the server farms, data centers, and semiconductor facilities that run the global technology economy are concentrated in the Silicon Valley corridor south of San Francisco, much of it on low-lying land vulnerable to bay flooding. The physical infrastructure of the digital economy is geographically concentrated in one of the most flood-exposed coastal regions in the country. When people talk about systemic risk, this is what it looks like on a map. There is a phrase that climate scientists use when they discuss what is happening to these cities. They call it relative sea level rise, the combination of the ocean going up and the land going down. Both forces are operating simultaneously in every city on this list. And the thing about relative sea level rise is that it does not care which component is larger. Whether the ocean rises a foot or the land sinks a foot, the flooding is the same. Global warming has raised global sea levels about 8 inches since 1880, and the rate of rise is accelerating. The odds of severe floods occurring by 2030 are on track to double or more across widespread areas of the United States. Climate Central. By 2050, coastal floods are expected to happen 10 times more often than they do today. Climate Central. These are not projections about distant futures. The 2030 threshold in that data is 4 years away. The flooding already happening in Miami, Charleston, and Norfolk is not the worst-case scenario, it is the current baseline. The worst-case scenario is what happens when a major hurricane strikes one of these cities at the moment when a king tide is already pushing water into the streets. If no preventative steps are taken, 1 inch 50 people living in 280,000 properties along United States coasts could face significant flooding impacts. Live Science. The researchers from Virginia Tech were direct. Current hazard mitigation efforts are inadequate. The investment needed to protect these cities is enormous. The investment currently committed is not enough. The cities on this list are not going to disappear overnight. What they face is a slow, grinding, expensive, and increasingly unmanageable escalation of a problem that has no clean solution, only choices about how much to invest, how fast to act, and at what point certain areas must simply be yielded to the water. For the 40% of Americans who live in coastal zones, those choices are not abstract. They are the value of your home, the safety of your neighborhood, and the question of whether the place you live will still be livable for your children. The water is rising, the ground is sinking, and the margin is getting thinner every year. If you own property in or near any city on this list, or if you are thinking about buying, drop your city in the comments. We read all of them. Subscribe if you want to keep seeing this kind of data laid out without spin. And the next video covers the American cities people are quietly moving to right now to escape exactly this, the places on higher ground that are booming because of what is happening on the coasts.